So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to this metric workshop. My name is Jan Meredith. I will be your instructor for this. I'm a sumo instructor based on the U.S. East Coast. So I've been asking you all where you're taking the class from geography-wise. Well, I'm in the United States, specifically on the East Coast, specifically in the state of New Hampshire, up in the town of Bedford. So about an hour to an hour and a half north of Boston, depending on whereabouts in Boston you are. So just to give you some geographical context. So the only thing I ask of you in this workshop is if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. You can ask them through the chat box, or you can ask them by unmuting your mic and asking them directly. So other than that, we're going to have a little hands-on exercise we're going to play. I'm assisted today by Odell. And Odell, you want to say hi, sir?
Hello and welcome everyone. Hopefully you're excited about learning metrics. John has a plethora of information, so good luck and enjoy. Welcome.
All right, I'm going to turn off my video camera just to save some bandwidth. So let's go ahead and get started. Our game plan for today is we really want to talk and we want you to understand why we put this workshop together. This workshop was put together for two significant reasons. One, customers about a year or so ago, maybe a little more than a year ago, said our metric interface was too complicated. It's too difficult to use and that sort of thing. So our developers went back to the developer, Garrett, there and worked on a new interface, making it simpler and easier. And we want to show you that new interface. So we're going to do some basic metric querying with that new interface and see how it works. The other thing is that a lot of our customers, quite frankly, use us and think about Sumo Logic as kind of a logs and observability type company. They don't necessarily think in terms of metrics and they don't use their metrics. A lot of our customers underutilize the amount of metrics that they're allocated. And so we thought we'd put this workshop together to help promote the need that companies probably have metric information, server metrics, application metrics, firewall metrics, whatever, so that they can ingest that information in, they can see what's going on and be smart about what's happening with their environments. So our agenda today is, like I said, we're going to talk about this new metric interface and talk about creating some simple metric queries. Then we're going to do some one better. We're going to say, look, the best way to create a query is to avoid creating a query. And we've got some built-in apps that you can install, which have dashboards and have underlying queries that you can install to see what's going on. So we're going to walk through a couple of those. And then we're going to talk about creating a unified alert and how we can set up alerts based on metrics. And then we'll wrap it up and, and that's next steps. And of course, ask you if you'll have any questions. Now, if you have any questions along the way, please do not hesitate to ask. That is why we are here. Okay, so feel free to ask your questions and put us to the test. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about metrics, basic type metrics. Again, for us, a metric is typically a data point that measures the value of something, typically over time, right? What is my CPU utilization? How much memory am I taking? Some numeric value that's, a key performance indicator that tells me what's happening, right? If you have little kids, right, every once in a while, maybe you check the height of your kid and you say, gee, how they're growing and track that sort of thing. This on the everyday metrics, the second bullet point says your weight once a week. Not a big thing for me, but maybe it's something that you might be interested in. So bottom line is we want to see the value of how things are going with our company. We want to see the value of, tracking our KPIs, our key performance indicators, and how they relate to being able to see how is our system doing. Our systems, whether they're on-prem or on the cloud or whatever, are they running too hot? Am my CPU utilization is getting too high? Am I using too much memory? Do I need to spin off more? Do I need to, what do I need to do here? Be able to see in and through your environments and stuff is very, very important. Sorry. And of course, it also will tell us we have an outage that occurred, as well as any events that have occurred that we want to try to prevent in the future. So metrics play a key role in all this. You'll find that we refer to metrics sometimes as data points per minute, DPMs. I know just what you need and the three-letter acronym to add to your vocabulary, but you can, and I can see how many metrics we're being charged for in Sumo. And you can also see when you go in here to this logs to metrics capability, you can also see how many DPMs or how many metrics you're allotted based on your contract. Every customer, we charge by ingestion. So we charge by ingestion. When we charge by that ingestion value, whatever your value is, we also allocate a certain number of metrics that you can use. And as I said earlier, many of our customers do not come close to even using their allocated DPMs, their allocated metrics. So that's one of the reasons we put this workshop together, to make people aware. Okay. As far as metric ingestion goes, when we ingest metrics, we will not ingest a metric data that's more than 1 week old. So if it's more than 1 week old, we flat out reject it. Okay. Now, when we do, if it's within that week, we ingest it, and we're going to be able to see it in the raw. So like you send it to us every 15 seconds, we'll see it every 15 seconds in the raw, and we retain that for 7 days. Now, at 1 minute and 1 hour intervals, we do a roll up on that, and we put those in a roll up table. And so the 1 minute resolutions, and when we do the roll ups, those roll ups are as a min, as a max, as an average, as a sum, and as a count for all the various metric values for that 1 hour or that 1 minute interval. And we retain the 1 minute intervals for 30 days. So if I want to look over the last 2 weeks and see my metric data, I can look within a minute resolution to see how things are going. Okay. And then if I want to look within, 6 months or 12 months or whatever, I can do that typically within an hour. So this is our normal metric retention policy that we use. And just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that's how we do store metrics, whether you're in the raw for 7 days, 1 minute resolutions for 30 days, or 1 hour resolution for 13 months. That is typically how we set that stuff up. Okay. Any questions? All right. If you've ever had any of our training before, you've probably seen this diagram before. This diagram basically describes the Sumo Logic data flow, right? How data starts. Data comes into us through this collection process, right? We have collectors and we have sources. Our collectors are either hosted collectors. So if you're on the cloud or you're using something as a software as a service, maybe you're using Salesforce or Office 365, that would be a hosted collector. And we host and maintain those collectors for you. You don't have to install anything. You don't have to do anything. Then you've got installed collectors, which are little lightweight Java-based applications that are going to compress the data, encrypt the data, and send the data to Sumo so that you can see that data and you can query it, you can analyze it. Now, the data that you're sending are either your various log sources or your various metric sources, right? So if you want to bring in some host metrics, we've got host metric sources that you can use. If you set up an AWS environment, we've got a whole bunch of AWS metrics that we can bring in, Kubernetes metrics, a whole wide variety of various other system type metrics we can bring in. If you're on Windows, obviously we can bring in a lot of your network monitor type, performance monitor type data and ingest that stuff as well. So that's the collection process. Once the data is collected in here, then we're going to write queries. And we either write 2 types of queries, either write log queries or we'll write metric queries. Our focus today is to write metric queries. So that's what we're going to talk about, the metric query editor and playing around with that. And then once we take these metric queries and we aggregate, we get some sort of a pie chart or a bar chart or a line chart, then we can add this, incorporate this to a dashboard. And we can also create alerts. So in this session today, we're going to talk a little bit about writing some queries, using some built-in dashboards that we have in our product that's available to you and to I, as well as creating some alerts. So we'll see some of these aspects of this data flow. Okay. As far as metric operators, we got a whole bunch here of metric operators, just like we have a whole bunch of log operators. In fact, if I click on this link, just bear with me a moment, this takes me into our documentation. So to get to our documentation, all you would have to do is type in help.sumologic.com, and you'll see that we have a whole chapter here on metrics. All of our metric information is right here. And in the chapter here, we've got different subtopics, including our metric operators. If anybody's curious, I'll take this URL, I will copy it, and I'll paste it in the chat so everyone has it. All right, so there is that. Now, in a minute here, what we're going to do is I'm going to invite you to log in, and we're going to take this thing for a spin, okay? But here are some of the metric operators that we're going to play with, some metric operators that we use. We normally have a 3-hour certification class called Metric Mastery, where we go into a lot more detail and a lot more specific things about metrics and converting log data to metric data and converting different types of metric data and all that fun stuff. But for right now, what we want to do is we want to just show you and give you a little taste for metrics. So let's do this. Let me stop the slide here real quick. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me advance the slide. And let's get you guys to log in. So what I want you to do is I'd like you to fire up Google Chrome or Firefox, those browsers. And I'd like you to go to the following URL, service.sumologic.com. That's service.sumologic.com. And when you go there, you should get a page that looks something like this with an email address and a password. For the email, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pick a 3-digit number. And I'd like you to type that in the chat box. It could be any 3-digit number you want. If you've always wanted to be James Bond, now you can be 007, okay? But I want you to pick a 3-digit number and type it in the chat box. And then for the email address, you're going to log in as Training Plus Analyst with that 3-digit number. You're going to replace these hashtags with the 3-digit number at sumologic.com. So it's an email address. And then the password is learning22 ! And that password just got changed on Monday. So here I'm going to put this directions and information in case anybody wants to copy it. I'm also going to put in here a document, and hopefully most of you can access this document from Zoom. Some companies I know have an issue with this, but I'm uploading a PDF document right now that you should all be able to see in the chat box, I hope, and you can all download. Now, in that PDF document, this is what it has, and it talks about logging in here, and I just realized I made a mistake. I made a typo here. Sorry about that. But it talks about logging in. The password is capital LERNING. There's a G missing here. Sorry. Numeral 2! So let me show you how this works. So again, service.sumologic.com. I've automatically logged in. So let me unlog myself out here just to be fair. And again, you want to pick a number, Training Plus Analyst. And I'm going to pick a 3-digit number. I'm going to grab 603. Why 603? That's the area code here for our phone service in New Hampshire. That's our area code, pure and simple. And then the password, the password is, and I can click on this so I can see the password. That's not right, okay? The password is LERNING, don't forget the G, 22! And then when you click sign in, it should allow you in. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to make sure everybody is logged in. So if you're logged in, you're able to log in here, and you may see tabs open on the top here. We'll talk about cleaning that up in a minute. But if you're logged in, I'd like you to go ahead and raise your hand. We don't want to leave anybody behind. We all want you to be able to log in. We want you to be able to follow along if you want. If you don't want to follow along, that's fine. I understand. Maybe you got those work issues to deal with. It's up to you. I see looks like 5 of you are logged in so far. Let me give you a minute here to get logged in. Again, if you're having problems, if it says that you need to verify your credentials or something's wrong with that email address or the password. And on the password, don't forget that exclamation mark at the end. But I want to give you all a chance to log in so you can play. By the way, that PDF document is yours to keep, yours to come back and play with this environment, play and do these exercises again later if you want. This is our training environment. It's open to the public. With these credentials, you guys can log in. I will warn you, the password does change monthly. So the password does change monthly. And as such, we just changed it Monday. So we're good until April. The first Monday in April, we'll change it again. All right. So it looks like 6 of you have logged in. Again, I'm not sure if I need to give more time here. So let me talk a little slower. but I'm going to assume I've got a forum here. So I'm going to lower all the hands. And let's talk about this environment. So here we are in the Sumo environment, and I just happen to have the home tab and the home, and there's home and there's learn, there's certification. You don't need to really worry about this tab, because what we're going to do is we're going to click on this new blue button. Now, when I click on this new blue button, I'm going to open up a new tab here for either log search, metric search, or whatever. Here is the metric search. Everything we're going to do in this class is all about the metric search. So I'm going to click on this new blue button and metric. I'd like you to follow along with me. And as I said before, I'm going to, by the way, over here, this is my navigation panel where I can see things and share things and all stuff. I'm going to close that up for right now by clicking the left turn signal there and just kind of minimize it to give myself some screen space. So here we are in the newly designed new Metrics Explorer, okay? And in this new Metric Explorer, over here to the right, you'll see these 3 vertical dots. That's our More Action button. That's what we call it. And if you click on it, you can see that I can switch between basic mode and advanced mode. Now, I want you all to be in basic mode. So it says metric, and then there's a drop down here to select your metric. Filters, there's a drop down to select your filters. And then there's this add operator. If for some reason you are in advanced mode, because the last person who logged in with us put you in advanced mode, so whatever mode you were in last when you next log in, you will be in that mode. Where it says enter a metric query, if that's what you see, then I'd like you to go ahead and click on those 3 dots, and I want to switch you back. I want you to switch back to basic mode. Basic mode, okay? So I want us to be in basic mode. And again, the reason I'm doing this is because, again, people complained that said our metric query interface, the old metric query interface, was too complicated, okay? And they're not wrong. They're really not wrong. So what I want to do is I want to show you how easy it is to query and get some metric data. So in our first little exercise here, excuse me, not that exercise. Let me go to, bear with me a second. There we go. Let's close this up. There we go. That's what I want. The first exercise here, we're going to create a metric, and we're going to start and play around with it. Okay. So the first thing they want us to do in this metric demo is they want us to be in basic mode. Right. That's what I asked you all to do. Now we're going to pick in the metric list, we're going to select CPU load average 15 minutes. So let me stop this for a second, or actually, let me switch back to my Sumo Logic interface. Click in here, start typing in CPU. And as I start typing in, I start seeing things that start with CPU. And we want to find the load average 15 minutes. And we'll select that. That's the metric that we want to see. Okay. And next thing, it takes me over to the filters. I don't want to filter by anything. So I'm just going to click up here. Actually, I'm just going to click on the little execute button. And this is going to show me all of the CPU load average 15-minute intervals I have for all the different hosts and systems that I have. And here under the preview table, I can see I've got data from this source, from this source, and this source, this source. That's all fine, well, and good. And by the way, here's my range. I'm looking at 15 minutes worth of data. I could change this to something longer if I want. But over here, what I really want to do is I want to see a picture. So if I click on chart, it now shows me what looks like a spaghetti factory here, right? I am seeing all kinds of lines, all my different hosts. And I could, if I want to, deselect and select hosts and, use this to select what I want to see. But what I want to do is I want to filter for a specific host. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, I want to filter for source category. And then I see a series of different source categories, a pick list here. So it makes it really simple to see what my choices are. And what I want you to do is I want you to find the one called host metrics / J Meredith. And if you click on that and you rerun this, now you are seeing one value. You're actually seeing my CPU load average 15 minutes from my computer that I'm teaching from right now. And you can see it's not terribly high. It's about 1.5%, right? So not running hot at all, right? I'm barely using my computer. But this is how you can filter for a specific computer or a specific set of computers. If I were to do something like this, I'm going to delete that filter, go back and say source category equals. And if I just type in host metrics /star, a star is a wildcard. So it will show me all the source categories that start with the word host metrics. And apparently there's only one, me. Okay. Let me redo this real quick one more time. Source category equals prod /star. And so I can see anything that starts with prod. And apparently I've got a few of these here based on the numbers I'm seeing down below. There's one up here, one down there. All right, but this is how you and I can see the specific metric that we want, specific host that we want, that sort of thing. If I want to see all the metrics, I can get rid of the word metric, and I can go in here and I can specify what do I want to see, right? I want to see what filter. Again, I can do it by source category. These, by the way, are metadata tags that we have, typically part of our system. And again, I can go out and look at my particular computer. And when I run this, now I'm seeing all of the metrics from my computer. There is my disk used. I put my cursor over here. I got my physical memory, physical RAM. So I can see, what my metric values are. So finding metric information in here is really simple, I think. But hopefully you think that too. Any questions so far before I go back to our exercise? Okay. So what I want to do is I want to go back here to the CPU load average on my computer, right? Source category, my computer. So I'm only seeing that one line. And what I want to do is I want to compare that with the CPU load averages of a bunch of machines, all of my machines, the average of all my machines. So for that, I'm going to add a second query. And the way you add a second query is this plus sign over here to the right. If you click on that plus sign, it's going to add another query. And this time, we also want to look at CPU load average. I want to compare my CPU load average against all the average of all the systems. So this is obviously mine. Down here, I'm not going to filter for a specific system or systems, but I am going to add an operator and say that I want to see the average of my other systems. And so now when I run this line up here is the average of all my other systems. And here's mine down here. Now, how could I easily know that? Well, up here, you can also disable and hide these. So if I click on that, it removes it or it enables it. And again, I can enable or disable, so I can pick and choose here what I want to see. Now, how many of you logically want to be able to do that? See one of your systems and how it's comparing to the average of other systems. Probably a few of you. So you can see, I hope this wasn't hard to do. By the way, if I want to save this query, I just click on this little icon here to save it. Now, so you've seen how hopefully easy it is to create these kind of metric queries. Let's talk about how we can turn this into some actionable information. Right now, here in my visualization here, I can go down to my visualization settings and I can change this to a different type of visualization. Maybe I want it to be column charts, bar charts. Maybe I want to see my raw table. You can pick and choose what you want to see. Or maybe you want to create pie charts. Or maybe you want to display single values. Now, obviously, I'm displaying two different things. So this is not a good example of a single value. But maybe I want to create honeycombs where I can see one system and then I can see the average of the other system. Remember, if I remove this average and rerun this, now I'm looking at all of my computer along with all of the other systems, right? So maybe I want to do it as a honeycomb. Again, maybe I want to do it as a line. As you can see, it's fairly easy to change this. At least I hope you can. I think it is. I think it's great. I'm going to put the average back in. And by the way, I can change my colors here if I want to. I can change my axes if I want to. You know, I can use one axis for one side and different axes for the other, dual axes. Again, my dual axes here if I want to show the axes. I can modify where my legend displays. And again, this is a usable legend. I can use it to turn on or turn off what I want to see. So when I add this to a dashboard, it will immediately make it easy for me to, see this stuff. Obviously, I can add labels all over the place, and I can also look at the underlying JSON that makes up this visualization. So if you've got a color scheme that you have in JSON that you want to apply to this, you can certainly do that. So lots and lots of capability, hopefully easy to use capability. And that, by the way, if I go back to my little lab, basically what we did was we saw all of the CPU load averages. We filtered for one, and then we also compared it against the CPU load average for average of all the systems. And so that takes care of that first lab. So that first lab taken care of. Any questions about this? All right, then. Let's talk about something else with regards to metrics. The most powerful query that you can probably write is the one that you don't have to write. And so if I click in the Sumo Logic navigation pane, that's where the stack of pancakes are, this hamburger menu is. If you open that up, you'll see that we've got our library folder here and a personal folder that you can save content to, and you can mark things as favorites, and you can see recently searched and all that sort of thing. Down here is our main menu. And in our main menu, if I click on App Catalog, you'll see that we have well over 200 applications that you can install out of the box. And so you can, I can, we can, if we want to focus on Microsoft Azure, we can filter by Microsoft Azure or AWS, see all these lovely applications. Now, I'm going to just type in here the word metrics, if you don't mind. And you'll see here I've got AWS Elastic Load Balancing metrics, Amazon RDS metrics, host metrics, and host and process metrics. Well, I've already got this app actually installed, the host and process metric, and we're going to take a look at it in just a minute, see the kind of power that we can get out of this. But with any of these apps, if you click on them, you'll see that it provides us with a dashboard preview of what we can see here. And we can very easily install this and add this to our library. The only thing I've got to do to add this to my library is I have to tell it what we call the data coming in for this information. But we can add this to our library. We can go out to the community and see more, all of that fun stuff. Okay. So you get to see immediately the value. Now, as I said, I have installed that. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at that. So yep, there you go. So Jim, I see you arrived late, no problems. Looks like we're getting you logged in here. So choose your own 3-digit number. If you want, you can use 603. That's the one I tested earlier and it works great. So welcome. All right. Now, so what we're going to do is we're going to go into our navigation menu. So this is not open. Click up here where it says Sumo Logic or the hamburger menu. It will open right up. I want you to click on library. Click on the library tab. And if you want to, rather than scrolling down and trying to find things this way, which could be a little cumbersome, what you can do is you can start typing something in. So I'm going to start typing in the word metric. And I want to filter by metric. And if I go down here, again, looks like I've still got a fairly long laundry list. Probably should have made it metric process. But if I scroll down here, there we go. Host and process metric right here. Host and process metric. That's what we want. And by the way, just to make it easier on myself, host and process. I filter, there it is, host and process metric. And if I click on that, I see there's a series of dashboards. One for CPU, one for network, one for overview, some process stuff, all kinds of good stuff here, okay? Now, per the directions in our little handout, they want us to go to the host and process metric folder, and they want us to click on the host metric overview dashboard. So let's go find the host and process metric folder. Let's go find the host metric overview dashboard. And of course, the first time you go in here, it's going to give you some help to give you a tour, which I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. I don't need the tour. And what I want to notice here is I notice that my CPU utilization is very high. It's 86.43. That's pretty high for my host. In fact, this particular host right here, my payment app is running very, very high, around 90%. Okay. And I want to know why. I want to know what's causing this to run so high. Now, we installed this application so that you and I could see through what's going on, to make it easy to tell us a story. And you'll find that these dashboards can be linked together. So to my documentation, right, we find there's this host process utilization about 90%. And if we click on it, we're going to see this side panel. So let's go in here. Let's click on this. There's my side panel over here to my right. And I can see here that my CPU utilization is pretty darn high. Okay. But it's also linked to another dashboard. So it's going to take me to my host metrics CPU dashboard so that I can click on that. And now I can see here my CPU processes over time. Again, my CPU utilization by host again. Down below here, I can see my CPU utilization by process. So here I have a process called the payment app monitor, and it's running pretty high. My other processes in here are running fine. My backups and other things are running just fine. They're nice and low. This one's running high. So I have to ask myself, why is this running high? So again, per our directions, if I take this direction, what we're going to do is we're going to click in this line somewhere, get that side window to pop out, and we're going to go into the process metric details. So as I put my cursor in here, you'll see I've got a little blue dot. Eventually, if I click in here, and it takes a little practice to get used to clicking in here so that the side panel pops out. You really want to see the little thumb, the finger, then you click on it. And now I can go into my process metric details. And now I can look at that specific process. So here in my process metric details, which by the way is right here, I can see, again, my performance, my CPU utilization. I can see my memory utilization. Most importantly, I can see here my payment app and how many read bytes, write bytes, CPU utilization I'm using. I can see who the user is that's using this app. And that also tells me what my average stats and stuff are. So I can get a sense here for what's happening, how many read bytes I'm using, write bytes I'm using, and that sort of thing. But what's interesting is this one user, John, through using this application, is causing all of this utilization to run high. Now, maybe it's an issue with John. Maybe there's something wrong with John's account. Maybe there's something wrong with how John's using this account. Maybe we need to have a system attendant type account. Maybe we need to do some tuning. But the bottom line is now I can ask John, why are you using this application? Why isn't the system, why aren't we using system credentials to run this application, which might hopefully keep the CPU utilization down? Obviously, an interactive user might take up more CPU clock cycles than, say, a system attendant type account. So as you can see, we're able to troubleshoot and say, gee, we've got a high CPU utilization. Break it down to what that process is. Break it down to specifically which user is causing this, and then we can investigate it farther. Now, all of these applications, by the way, all of these visualizations and stuff that you're seeing are themselves, by the way, metric queries. So I could open up any one of these and I can actually see the underlying metric query of what makes this up. Now, as I mentioned before, the best query to write is the one you don't have to write. The one you don't have to write is these apps that you install, and they automatically provide you this kind of information. So this has a bunch of queries already written, a bunch of dashboards already written. All you've got to do is ingest, interpret the data, and troubleshoot. Any questions on this particular exercise? Well, let's take a look at the next exercise. Back to my PDF document here. Let's move on. It talks about MySQL app. So we're going to go out and find a MySQL app in Sumo Logic. So once again, by the way, I've got a bunch of tabs open here. You may have a bunch of tabs open here. If you don't want these tabs, of course, you can close them one at a time, which is a bit cumbersome. Or if you click on the 3 vertical dots on any of these tabs, you'll see you have an option to close all tabs. And that cleans it right up for you. Now, what we want to do is we want to go up here and we want to look for MySQL. Again, if I could type, MySQL. And there, lo and behold, is MySQL app, this folder right here. And if I click on my MySQL folder, I see there's a couple subfolders and there's a MySQL overview. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that MySQL overview. Now, again, you're looking at the performance of your MySQL database, or it could be your Microsoft SQL database, or it could be, whatever database that you have, DB2, I don't care. And you want to see how long has it been up, how many errors am I generating, replication errors. All this stuff is pre-built for you. Now, one thing I do notice in here that gets my eye is I have excessively slow queries, right? I've got over 5,000 excessively slow queries in the last 24 hours. So that's what I want to investigate. That's what I want us to investigate together. So again, I'm going to click on this. It brings up my side panel. And this side panel is going to take me to a dashboard that's written specifically to let me investigate these slow queries. So I'm going to click on this. And now I can see my various slow queries. I can see by IP address. I can see by top users as far as how we're breaking things down. It looks pretty even. I can see slow queries by environments. There's only one environment here. I can see average execution time by alter, create, delete, CRUD type stuff, right? So I can also see it right here. Most importantly, as I scroll down, one of the cool things I really like about this, I got a table that shows me my top 10 slow queries by average execution time. So here I can see a particular query and how much it's having an impact on what's happening. I can also look at my queries by frequency, as far as how often they're being used. So here I can immediately see what queries are taking the longest time. And then I can go out and investigate those queries, maybe run them through some sort of a query analyzer tool to see what their execution plans are, to see if maybe there's some way I can tune them to improve their performance. So back to my lab here, right? We went from here, went to that dashboard. We are able to see the average query execution time. And from there, we can investigate, analyze, do the things that we need to do. In my mind, that's pretty powerful. Saves me lots of time. Are there any questions about those first 2 exercises? Any questions at all? All right, then the last thing I want to talk about here is the unified alerts demonstration. So here in the PDF that you have under the alerts unified demonstration, we're going to go into manage data. We're going to select alerts. So let's go in here to Sumo Logic. Again, let's go into our navigation panel. Let's go into our manage data main menu. And under here, we're looking for something here. Sorry, I forgot to change the documentation. My fault. It used to say alerts. It now says monitoring. I forgot to change the documentation here. You want to click on monitoring. Here we have a whole bunch of monitors that we can create dealing with either metrics or log data that tells us if we're experiencing problems. Okay. And so you and I can write these. We can also put them in folders. So if we wanted to, I could create a folder here called Apache Monitors. I could go in there and I could see the monitors for my Apache web server. you and I can go in here, we click add and create a folder to organize our monitors. Or if we want, we can just create a new monitor in the existing folder that we're in. And when I click in new monitor here, I get to decide if I want my monitor based on a log or based on metrics. Since we're talking about metrics, let's make it metrics. Again, here I can either be in basic mode or advanced mode. I want to be in basic mode. So if it says basic mode over here, click on it. And what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to grab that CPU load average 15 minutes. And under my operator, I am going to grab average. Okay. And so now what I'm getting here in my query, and I'm going to say average by, I could average it by source category, account, AWS region, whatever I want to do. So I could break it down if I want to, but I'm not going to. Now, what I've got down here is a chart showing me my CPU utilization. And so this area up here is where you define your criteria, your query, things like that. And I could add an additional query here if I wanted to, but this is good enough for what I need. Down here, I can say, you know what, I want to set an alert if I'm missing data. So if I click on the missing data tab, notify me if we're if we're not getting any data over the last 15 minutes, okay? If all of a sudden I'm lost data, this is something problematic. Now, these are my production machines. If they're down for 15 minutes, I'd probably make it more like 5, right? If they're down, notify me, tell me that. Also, we not only tell you when things go wrong, we will tell you when things get recovered again, when things are back to normal. Now, how we tell you that is going to come up here in just a few minutes. So here's where we're going to set up our trigger types. And then later on, we'll specify our notifications. So here in our trigger types, I can click on the warning tab. Now, again, in this case, we're like at 5 or 6% CPU. So we're not burning real hot here at all. But maybe I want to set an alert that says, look, if I get above 80%, right, within a period of time, notify me or let me know and that sort of thing. So I could set a warning level at say 80%. Also, again, by default, it will automatically notify me if we recover below that. Or if I want to change it to have a different value, I can throw the switch and I can make this value maybe 75%. So I can make it a different value if I want to. So again, I'm down here right now. I'm in good shape, but realistically, my CPU got above 80%. Probably want to be aware of it. Now, criticality, if I get above 95% or 90%, yeah, I definitely want to know. And again, you can define your time criteria, And so these are the criteria by which we're going to say, hey, we got a problem. Now, who do you want to notify? And how do you want to notify them? So I scroll down here. Here is where we specify our notifications. Do I want to have separate notifications for the different criterias? One notification for the different criterias? What sort of notification types do I want? Do I want to notify and send you an email? Do I want to send a message through Datadog? Do I want to send a message through Slack, through Microsoft Teams? And we can also create web hooks to other type of systems, PagerDuty and others, to notify them that we've got a problem, okay? So who do you want to notify? How do you want to notify? Maybe I'll say I want to create an email. Who do I want to send this email to? Maybe my ops, how about network ops at sumologic.com, whatever. You can address it to whomever you want, personal email, group emails, whatever, doesn't make a difference. Put as many emails here as you want, semicolon separate. And then down here, it talks about the subject line. It's going to say, hey, we had a trigger type, whether it was a critical warning, no data on whatever the name of this that I save. And then here in my message, I can type in whatever I want. And I can also use various variables that I can use that will populate. As far as my results, my queries, my results in JSON, all of that stuff. And then I decide, do I want this to fire when I'm missing data and recover from missing data? Do I want this to fire when I've got a warning, a recovery, an alert, recovery? What criteria here do I want to use? And then the last thing I'm going to do is name this, right? Call this server CPU utilization, and I can put a description in here if I want to. I will, just for fun here, put my initials. Okay, and I'll save it. Okay, didn't like my email address. Yep, that's true. Shame on me. Let me make it my email address. By the way, I wish the save button was kind of down here at the bottom because you're driving through the whole interface, but it's not. So I'll click it up now. It's going to save it. So here now it has added this new alert. Okay. And so what I can also see is I can see the status of this alert. So as I go down here, here it is. I can see right now it's normal based on a metric. If I want to, I can also go in here. There's a little ellipsis here I can click on, and I can go in here and I can delete it, disable it, delete it, whatever the heck I need to do. I can export this out as JSON and import it back in if I want. In fact, we've got a bunch of pre-built alerts that you can actually import in if you look at our documentation. So here you can add an alert by importing the JSON that makes it up here. Okay. So that's basically how we set up alerts with regards to metrics. So let me get back to my slides here. And first of all, have any questions so far? I've gone through this fairly quickly, but I'm trying to be cognizant of your time. So the metric demo, like I said, we created the metric query stuff. Use that interface, made it fairly easy to create the metrics, I think, but you tell me. And then being able to benefit from those built-in applications, right? We have the ability to see metrics at so many different levels, but mostly probably an infrastructure level, right? And a microservice level. Those are typically where you get into your metrics and stuff like that. But we could have metrics for your development efforts and stuff like that. So, we could look at the various development applications and stuff that are going on. And of course, your various application components. So lots of ways that we can get access to metrics. So, and we've got various applications pre-built, ready for you to go. Okay. So again, when we think about metrics, we're typically talking about things like CPU utilization, memory utilization, but anything that you can aggregate and sum and stuff like that, give me a metric. So, if you're talking in your accounting systems, you can deal with your financials, you can do whatever. But again, when I think of things, I think in terms of IT type stuff. And so CPU utilization, memory utilization, how my environment's playing, that sort of thing. How much, if I'm spawning off things through Kubernetes, how is the performance of that doing? How long is it taking? Things like that. So we looked at the metric process app. The screenshot here is a little out of date. I'll refresh it. And we also talked about the MySQL app. So we walked through those two apps and we're able to quickly identify what the problems were and then be able to investigate them as we need to. Again, we've got a whole bunch of other apps in there, depending on what applications you all are running, that you can probably install out of the box that have built-in dashboards and built-in queries that you can have lots and lots of fun with. Okay. And then the last thing I typically did was we talked about the unified alerts and how you and I can go into and create these alerts. Now, I can create these alerts like I showed you here through the data collection, the monitoring section, or you can also create dashboards and you can alert based on your dashboards. Have those dashboards up in your network operations center and your folks are monitoring those dashboards, looking at them to see what's going on. So another way of doing it. We focused on the unified alerts and we focused on creating an alert again in the environment. So any questions about what we've talked about so far? Anything that you want to ask with regards to metrics? All right. Well, let's wrap this up and give you some time back, maybe. So, key takeaways, right? Hopefully, number one, you'll learn this new metric interface makes it easy for you to create the metric queries that you need. Second thing, hopefully, you take away from this is you got a bunch of built-in applications that you can install and have the information at your fingertips right now. You don't have to write queries, you don't have to build dashboards, it's all done for you. And then last but not least, the unified alerting with the metric alerts makes it very easy so you can be, somewhat proactive rather than reactive, or at least you know what the heck's going on, right? So thank you, Olga. Appreciate the comment. You'll find that we've got a couple of things that can help you out. Again, if you want to learn more about metrics, there's a chapter in our documentation. Again, it's help.sumologic.com, where it talks about metrics and all the metric operators and how to install metrics and ingest metrics and all that sort of thing. There's also a help section in our help section about the Sumo Logic applications that you can use. You'll also find out on YouTube, there's a whole bunch of micro lessons, 5-10 minute lessons on how to do things with metrics. And so I encourage you to go out to YouTube and look for the Sumo Logic channel, subscribe to it if you want. And like I said, listen to some of those videos and help yourself out. There is also a metric mastery class that you guys are also welcome to take that we offer probably about once a quarter in different regions that you guys can sign up for. It's a 3-hour, goes into more detail about metrics and queries and logs to metrics and importing metrics and all that fun stuff. But you can go out here to sumologic.com/learn/training and you can find out information about that, sign up and register. And that's it for the presentation. What questions have you? If there aren't any questions, you're welcome to sign out. Again, want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today. And if there's anything we can do to help you in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out. Otherwise, thanks for attending. Feel free to sign out and have yourselves a lovely day. Please be safe.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.